Welcome to Unrestrained, the podcast series from CPI. Here you can enjoy conversations where professionals on all sides of crisis and behavior management relax and open up about themselves, their workplace, and their clients. You'll get the latest tips and trends from the best in the business, so tune in often to integrate their experiences with your own. Hello and welcome to Unrestrained, a CPI podcast series. This is your host, Terry Vitone, and today I'm joined by Linda Welch. Hello and welcome, Linda.
Hello, Terry, and thank you for inviting me to do this podcast with you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for appearing. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest. Linda Welch is a CPI Meritorious instructor with a powerful and proven commitment to human services. She earned her BS in Criminal Justice from the University of Tennessee and her Master's in Biblical Counseling from Friends International Christian University. For the last 33 years, Linda has worked for Youth Villages, a private nonprofit organization dedicated to helping emotionally and behaviorally troubled children and their families live successfully. According to the Youth Villages website, from the early days of serving just 80 children a year, we've since grown to help tens of thousands of children, families, and young people annually with a complete continuum of programs and services across 20 states and 72 locations. According to Linda, she believes that she was destined to be at Youth Villages because of her passion for helping people, especially youth. In our interview today, we'll talk with Linda about her direct work with kids at Dogwood Village campus and her amazing work as the Assistant Director of Performance Improvement, a job that entails an incredible amount of training. All right, let's begin today, Linda, with acquainting our listeners with Youth Villages, an organization. According to your website, Youth Villages has more than 30 years of helping children and families live successfully. Can you start today by telling our listeners about the fundamental purpose and menu of services provided by the organization?
Yes, I can. Well, we believe in providing the best care and services to children and families. We go above and beyond to do whatever it takes to help our children and families live successful. We do that through services we offer, which are services such as residential, and we have 4 residential programs here in the city of Memphis, and we have 1 residential program in Douglasville, Georgia. We have group homes. So our group homes are here in Memphis. We have 3, and then we also have 3 in Nashville. We have foster care services, intensive in-home services, MST services, YB Life Set services, which is a program that helps children who are aged out of foster care and other services and to keep them off the streets and give them a future, so to speak. MAPAC is one of our services in Mississippi. Specialized Crisis is our crisis management program, and we also have diversion services in Oregon that does the same thing. We have adoptions, mentoring, and ANIA. So all these programs, and we serve these children and families through all these programs. So today we have services in 20 states, 53 cities, and 71 locations.
Wow.
That's we are.
So quite a reach that Youth Villages has.
Oh, yes.
And according to your website, in fact, Youth Villages helps more than 26,000 children and families per year. And you guys have a trademarked approach known as evidentiary family restoration. And I wondered if you would talk about the fundamental components of EFR, or evidentiary family restoration.
Yes, we believe in families. We believe in family preservation. We believe the best place for the child is in the home, or if not, in the original mom-dad family, an extension of the family, like an aunt, uncle, or grandmother, maybe an older sibling. So it's all about preserving the family, or if they're already out of home, restoring the family so they can return home. So we look at these 5 different areas. The work is very intensive. Of course, we're focusing on the child, and then we focus on measuring outcomes. Everything we do is evidence-based. And we like, again, to prepare the child for going back home, they're already out of the home, or keeping the child in home. So keeping children within the community, also helping them understand what community means to them. A lot of our children have had, unfortunately, incidents in the community that involve police. So we're trying to make sure our kids, when they're in the community, they remain safe. And then we just like to provide accountability to our families and our funders. We have people who come on board to youth villages, and they support us, and they fund some of our programs. So we are accountable to them as well.
I see, and so this is ties into your slogan or your motto there at Youth Villages is the force for families. So that ties in, I guess, to what you just said. What does that mean to you, Linda, and how does it practically apply to some of those outcomes that you mentioned produced by Youth Villages?
Well, I think what Youth Villages, and I believe what Youth Villages is doing, is we're setting a standard. We're setting the bar high. We want to be the agency where we want people to send their young people. We want to be able to provide these services. And as you can see, we're all pretty much across the country. And again, being that force, we're not trying to overpower anybody, but we're trying to empower our children and our families. And with that comes along synonyms like strength, power, energy, and impact. My thought is we're trying to shift the mindset of our children and families from a negative perspective to a positive perspective. And everything we do, like I said, is really outcome-based, is evidence-based. We have a whole department here called Outcomes and Evaluations that track our youth and families, and they track them up to 6, 12, 18 months, maybe I think also 24 months to have that data to support what we do. So when we are looking to enter into other states, we have all of that with us to show that what we do and what we are doing does work.
And Linda, what are some of those data points that you would measure at, say, 6 months, a year, 18 months?
Well, I hear them asking questions. I'm not in that department, but sometimes I can hear them talking on the phone.
Right.
And they want to know, has the child been involved with, again, the police? They want to know, has the child been truant, and is the child still in the home? And those kinds of questions, that gives us that information that lets us know that what we did with these youth here at residential maybe, and then they went home, or what we did with the youth and the family in the home has worked and does work.
So really, you're reorienting young people to think of the family unit as something empowering and providing safety rather than something that might threaten them.
Correct.
I see.
It's kind of scary when children have to be removed from the home and placed in residential. Residential is our most restrictive area, and so it is kind of scary. And then some of them have already been to multiple placements before. So when they get here, a lot of them already have a negative experience and a bad taste, so to speak, in their mouth. And so we want them to know we're not like those other facilities. We're not like those other agencies. We care about you. We want to help you. We want to see you get back home, or we want to see you get back in a least restrictive environment.
That sounds like it sounds like from your success that you've had there and from the way you've grown that your outcomes have been very substantial. And I sense from talking to you that there's an atmosphere at Youth Villages that really telegraphs that positive inclusion as soon as a child gets there.
Yes.
In your mission statement, and during our pre-interview, Linda, you spoke about the importance of Youth Village's mission statement, and I think it really ties this together. It's very concise. It says, Youth Villages helps children and families live successfully. So I think, could you explain a little bit about what that means to you and how Youth Villages fulfills that mission in practice?
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is direct. It's to the point. I mean, why beat around the bush? That's what we do. And we do it with all those services I mentioned earlier. And again, it started here in Tennessee. It started right here in Memphis. And from that one program, and then we merged with another residential program, all these other states and these programs that we have is amazing. I'm still amazed by it. I mean, I've been here 33 years, yes, but I'm still amazed by how the growth has occurred for this organization. So the mission statement is what we use. When I first started here, we didn't have a mission statement, but since we developed a mission statement, that's what we live by. It guides every decision we make in this organization. And that's one of the first things that we teach new hires. They have to understand the mission statement here, because we want them to know what we are about. And along with the mission statement, we have those 9 values. So we get everybody to understand, in order for you to be doing what we say we do here, you feel to help children and families live successfully, you've got to apply those 9 values to your daily work.
So the 9 values, could you quickly list those for me? Or are they're on the site maybe? I'm really...
They're on the site.
Okay.
I mean, we live by it, so there's no way you cannot find the values.
Now let's switch, Linda, to a little bit about your career path and your current role and your experience training CPI. I think you mentioned to us just a moment ago that you've been in human services for 33 years. You started back in, I think, 1986. Talk about your career choices and professional development, if you would.
As I stated before, I started here in 1986, and I'm a native Missy, and I've lived here my entire life. My heart has always been toward working with children and families. Initially, I thought I was going to work in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, and I'm believing it was God-led, and that's just who I am, I just didn't want to go that route, even though I have a degree in, criminal justice and what have you. Mm-hmm. But I felt like I really, really wanted to work with the youth and with families on this side versus after they are already incarcerated and things like that. So I saw this, and back in the day in 1986, everything was like a want ad. We didn't have all this fancy stuff that we have today.
Sure.
Where you can go online, put in applications and things like that. So I saw this organization in the paper. I had no idea where it was. I never heard of it. It's called Dogwood Village. I set up an interview. I drove out to it, which was like probably, 20-some miles from my house. But I got the job that day. And I hadn't looked back since. I've enjoyed this, working here at Youth Villages. I've learned a lot. Again, I worked 8 years at Dogwood. I worked with the girls at first, and then I started working with the boys. And I thoroughly enjoyed my residential training. I call it training, helping children and families. But then I began to, the organization began to think about a formal training program. From there, I applied for that position, and I got it.
So how did you first interact with, so you got your degree in criminal justice, and you thought, so it really gave you kind of a unique perspective because you understood that side of the experience for youth that had maybe gone astray. And you thought, I understand what happens on that end, but I want to go work with them to help them rather than work in the punitive side, to work more on the restorative side that you did. So what was your first involvement with youth back then for those years at Dogwood? Did you work directly with the kids then?
Yes. So when I started at Dogwood, there were like 5 cottages, 2 cottages of girls and 3 cottages of boys. So we basically had 8 kids per cottage, so 40 kids. We've gone from 40 kids, as you know, now to happening and serving 26,000 kids with all these programs. So I was working with the girls, and again, most of them know they need help, but then they don't want help. You go through all that stuff where they mad at you, fuss at you, cuss you, and all that kind of stuff, but I stayed because I knew I was supposed to be here. I knew I was supposed to help these young people, whether it was girls or boys. I've worked with both. And, there were times when they would say stuff that, of course, that they say stuff to try to make you quit. Say stuff like, I hate you, I hope you die on the way home, But, that only fueled me the more to stay. So it's amazing how children respond to you. But by the end, and when it was time for them to discharge, they appreciated my firmness, my direct approach with them, because I really, really wanted them to make it. I really cared about them. Mm-hmm. And once they know you care about them, then they can really hear you and listen to you.
That's a valuable lesson. I know from your experience resume that you sent me that you're an elder in your church today, and it sounds like even back in those years that you felt very guided in sort of a way of destiny to help these kids.
Yes. Once I started in the training department, it was already kind of in me. I just didn't realize I need to say yes to God. I'll do your will, so to speak. concerning becoming an elder. So that's one of the best things that's happened to me as well. I mean, I enjoy being here. I enjoy helping these young people. And again, I see this as a calling. I see this as a mission. I can't get away from it. One day, yeah, I'm going to retire. But I would not retire from helping children and families. It may be on another level, maybe somewhere else, but I would never do that. Maybe in the church. That's how important it is to me, because I see so much, you know, and so much is happening in our country, in our nation, and in our cities. So I'm thankful and I'm blessed to be doing what I'm doing.
Excellent. Now, today, your role as an assistant director of performance improvement there. Talk about your primary duties today at Youth Villages, if you would.
Yes, I oversee all the new hire orientations for the organization, and we have like 7 orientations that goes on at any given point. I have staff that I oversee in those orientations. We have an orientation in North Carolina, Massachusetts, Knoxville, Nashville, Memphis, of course, Georgia, and Oregon. So that responsibility falls under me. And I mean, I enjoy it. I've been doing it a long time. I like meeting people. I used to travel a lot. I don't travel as much as I did. But I'm thankful for what I do. and I love my staff. I love my team. And I think, you know, we've grown a lot. The organization grows a lot. And as the organization has grown, we've had to grow to have more orientations for new hires.
I know. Let's move into CPI training now and how it works at Youth Villages. Youth Villages began using CPI training 32 years ago, back in 1987. That's a long way back, but if you could talk about your initial impressions of the training and why it was chosen for Youth Villages.
Okay. When I started, there was a young man named Leo Kaufman. Leo was very familiar with CPI, and CPI is very familiar with Leo, but he has since retired. He was the director of Dogwood, and at that time, he was the only CPI certified instructor, and he taught us the techniques. He taught us CPI. We got certified through him. And for me, we learned a lot about the control dynamics, personal safety techniques, and the team control, which is what we use the most. And a lot has changed with CPI since then, of course. We have more options now. But back then, it was basically the team control with our youth, you know, and of course we had transport. So learning that was very, very helpful, and it also made very, very much sense to me back in the day. But when I became an instructor, then when you learn it from an instructor perspective, then you see why all of these different techniques and especially the verbal stuff is extremely important. We'd rather de-escalate a youth if we can, and sometimes our youth are so out of it verbally that you just have to watch them and wait for them to reach tension reduction. But I'd rather do that than have to restrain, and we teach that to our staff, that the restraint should be last resort.
So, but you, in addition to those physical controls like the team control, the physical restraints that are as part of CPI training, that crisis development model also made an impression on you back then.
Oh, yeah, because, you know, the thing about that is you also have to look at yourself. So when we're talking about it and we're going through the anxiety level and the defensive level, I put it back on the new hires and even in refreshers. I put it back on them because when you see, I ask them, when you're experiencing anxiety, how does it manifest? How do you know you're in the anxiety level? Excuse me. And then they'll start, you know, and I'll call on them, you know, because they have the little name tent, and I'll call on them and ask them, and I say, I'll talk about in general. I'm talking about you, because you got to recognize the error up there that says integrated experience, okay? And so we talk about that, and we allow them to take time to look within themselves. Then when I get to the defensive level, I'll do the same thing. What happens when you're defensive? How does it manifest? And so we talk through all of that to get them to understand. It's very, very important that you understand your buttons. You understand when things get personal. You understand all of this because you can cause a child to go into crisis.
So you can be a contributing factor yourself by the way you handle their aggression or challenging behavior.
Yeah.
So let's talk about when you first came to train nonviolent crisis intervention. You're a meritorious instructor now. When did you first learn to train the course, Linda?
I first learned the training course when I became, when I, let's see, that was 1999.
Okay.
So I think in maybe in 2000, I went to my first certification course in Nashville.
Wow.
Yeah, I worked all day and then did another 3 hours of work driving,
Wow.
driving to Nashville. So yeah, it was 1998, and drove to Nashville to get certified in CPI.
And now today, I think we talked, you're responsible for providing CPI training to every new hire at youth villages. Is that correct?
Yes, my team and I. Those orientations that I mentioned.
Uh-huh.
Everyone who goes to orientation gets CPI.
So everybody. So how many people do you train per month?
Wow. My thought would be anywhere, I mean, it could be anywhere from 50 to 100, because every orientation is different. The Memphis orientation probably has the largest number of attendees, but certainly when you count up all the different orientations that goes on, it could be anywhere from 50 to 100.
So you might train 1,000 people in a year, literally, in CPI.
Yes.
Wow. That's a lot of training. How do you keep it fresh?
Well, for one thing, this training is fun. I mean, to me, it's educational, but it's fun, and it's serious. So we do the little activities that we're taught,
Mm-hmm.
and again, every orientation class is different too. So,
How do they differ?
well, we have different programs. We have a lot more different programs in our Memphis orientation than we do in other orientations. Some of my staff only teach the 6 hour because all those people that need in those orientations is up to the disengagement skills because they're not allowed to restrain.
I see.
But in Memphis, Nashville, and Georgia orientation, they are allowed to restrain. Even though we'll have a mixture of the other people, they'll get the 6 hours, and then we'll do the rest of the training with the residential people and the group home people who will have to have the disengagement skills as well as the holding skills.
So you find the training then easily customizable by the need of the recipient getting the training.
Yes,
I see.
yes, yes.
Wow. And today, I think we spoke, you oversee a team of 34 advanced physical skills CPI certified instructors. Why are those advanced physical skills? I think this is maybe coming down Main Street, but I'm going to ask it. Why are those physical skills so critical to behavior management at youth villages?
Well, and I mean, I have a total of 34 CPI instructors, but probably about 3 or 4 of those are not advanced skills because they teach us the 6 hours, but up to disengagement skills. But I do have a lot. We just had 6 to go through. It's because of the nature of our children. I mean, it's mainly going to be in residential. We have 2 facilities called intensive residential treatment centers, and those are our most restricted centers. They're locked facilities, and we have some youth in those particular programs. We're glad to be able to serve that population, but we also have some in that program who are very, very difficult. And, just recently, the leadership here decided that they wanted to have something that we could maintain the child on the floor. So when we went to we looked at some others, but my vote was, why go somewhere else when we already doing CPI, and CPI does have an answer for that. So that's when I talked to Don Struck about, getting that taken care of with us, and just kind of realized that we needed to go to that next level because we had some kids that we needed to use the technique, the supine on. And so far, it works pretty good.
So you have to go ultimately to a supine restraint sometime because of the extreme behavior of some of the really challenged kids that you serve there.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, boy, so it's a really, I guess, an interesting mixture. I mean, you guys use disengagement and holding skills taught in nonviolent crisis intervention training, and I think that's central at Youth Village. But do you think, Linda, that the verbal de-escalation skills are utilized equally as effectively at youth villages? I mean, has it influenced your culture there in all the years that you've been working?
Well, yes. I mean, I think we probably put more emphasis on the verbal than the physical. It's kind of how, we try to make sure we're balancing it all out. But again, I would rather a person take the time to engage the child.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not just, it's the way the schedules are set up, and it's the way we ask our counselors and our staff to get to know the youth and families, because the better you know them, the better you can see when they're getting anxious, or you can address some issues because you got that rapport. You got a working relationship with this youth or this family. So yes, the verbal is I think the verbal is powerful, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about the nonverbals, because you can be saying something verbally,
Right.
but nonverbals could be opposite of what you're saying. So we try to talk to them about the paraverbals, the nonverbal communication, of course, the personal space, and things like that, even if you're sitting. Because, again, we are working with these young people, we're establishing a relationship, this rapport, but there are days when this young person and some of these family members don't want to hear you. I mean, they don't want to have anything to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we can't help them live successfully if we just walk away. So we got to hang in there with them, see them through it, talk them through it, support them in any way we can by using those techniques that's taught in CPI, but also being honest and reasonable with them. So
That's kind of like a really great definition of what we call the supportive stance right there.
exactly.
And it's really inspiring to hear somebody who is so experienced as yourself and working with so many challenging kids and training thousands of people in a year that these skills and these concepts are as meaningful to you as they are. What about refresher training? How often do you guys refresh?
So for those who go through just the CPI up to the disengagement skills, those people who are outside of residential programs, they refresh every year, because we don't want anybody to go past a year.
Okay.
And so they'll come back to us, and we'll walk through the trainings with them. And then residential and group home programs where they are restraining every 6 months, and then we require them to practice. Because if you can go through orientation, learn this, be certified, of course,
Right.
and then get over to your programs and never have to strain for 3 months. So that's why we ask them to practice. Plus, you got a new person joining your team, and y'all hadn't worked together yet as far as on the skills of restraining or even intervening verbally. We tell them to practice. So we expect a lot to be going on post-orientation over in the program.
Mm-hmm. So you really want this to be very present in the mind of your staff, and to do that, you really refresh often. How do you, Linda, with so many locations, how do you coordinate refreshing all those people?
Well, again, my staff who are responsible for those staff in orientation, they take care of it in their state,
I see.
in their locations. We document everything. We upload it on our site. And really, we're held accountable by our auditors, the people who pay for us to take these children. So we have to make sure we stay up to date with CPR, CPI, and those things, and some other ongoing trainings that the state requires us to take.
Mm-hmm.
So they document that, my staff here documents it, and if we allow one of the site instructors, that's what we call the CPI instructors who came on board with us and partnered with us at the locations, if we allow them to teach, they know what they're responsible for doing to get to us, so we can keep everything documented and in line for an audit.
Well, let's wrap up today with a couple questions. We'll bring some celebrity into this that always seems to grab people's attention. You have something there called Janie's Fund, which was a division created or I guess funded by the rock musician Steven Tyler. Could you explain that? Talk about that.
Yeah, I think we all were excited when we heard about this. I think it started back in 2015 when we first started hearing about Steven probably coming on board to support us, and so we were excited about that. And then lo and behold, it happened. So this is a partnership that occurred between the CEO, Patrick Lawler, and the Chief Development Officer, Richard Shaw, and they were able to establish this whole thing with Stephen. And, it's based on his song, Janie's Fun. Janie's Fun is based on his song, Janie's Got a Gun. Sorry.
Right.
And, Janie's Fun has raised awareness to help provide trauma-informed care and experiential care and things like that to the girls. So it's basically a funded program for our ladies here at Youth Villages. He's partnered with us, and we have 2 Janie Fund houses right now. One is in Inner Harbor down in Georgia, and the other is here on the Bartlett campus. So since 2017, both of these houses, he's worked, diligently with us to get these houses for these girls.
That's a great contribution.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
yeah. So, and Linda, and your contribution. After all these years, 33 years. Talk about, if you would, what keeps you going?
Well, I will say again, I really, really believe in my very core of who I am that I'm supposed to be here. I think this is my purpose. This is my mission. And even with being here and just enduring some things, I stay because I know I'm supposed to be here. I've actually had a couple of brain tumors while I've been here, and even with that, I've been blessed to still be alive. The second brain tumor was actually cancerous. I'm a cancer survivor. I thank God for that. I want my life, my tenure here at Youth Villages, my life with the challenges that I've had, to be a testament, a testimony to people that come through. I don't mind sharing and talking about it because I know I'm here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thankful to be at Youth Villages, doing what I do to help children and families, and a lot of staff. I help staff as well. When you think about it, I spent more than half of my life here at Youth Villages, 33 years. I started here when I was 25. So if you count the math, I am 58 years old. 33 years of my life. So I'm blessed. I thank God for putting me here, basically. That little ad in the paper. 33 years ago.
That's a great story. It's a powerful and a beautiful message, Linda, and thank you for sharing that with us today. My guest on Unrestrained today has been Linda Welch. She is a CPI Meritorious Instructor. She is also a Assistant Director of Performance Improvement at Youth Villages. Thank you so much for talking with us today, Linda.
You're welcome, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today on Unrestrained. Tune in again soon for another interview with an expert in behavior management. Until then, this is your host, Terry Vitone, hoping your intention is prevention.